It's open! Ah!
It was a suffocatingly hot July night in rural Montana, 2025. I was trying to fix a busted transmission on a beat-up pickup truck belonging to my neighbor, Gary. The only sound was the drone of the swamp cooler and the crickets. Everything felt normal, boring, and routine. Then, the lights cut out. Not just my shop lights, but the whole valley. A complete, silent darkness. It wasn't stormy. The stars outside the open bay door were razor sharp, but wrong. They seemed too bright, pulsating. I grabbed my heavy-duty flashlight. That's when I smelled it, a metallic odor, like ozone mixed with burnt pennies, and something else, something sweet and earthy, unsettlingly biological. It was coming from the back 40, past the junk heap. My boots crunched over the dry grass, following the distinct path of broken branches. The smell intensified until it was almost painful. Then, I saw it, not debris, but an impact crater carved into the earth, leading to a half-buried shape. It was impossible. The object was seamlessly metallic, reflecting the flashlight beam like polished coal. It was shaped like a blunt arrow, maybe 30 feet long, utterly alien. My skepticism, the hard shell of practicality, was shattering instantly. A section of the hull, near the stern, was warped inwards, glowing faintly green. It was clearly where the main damage was. And standing beside it, silhouetted against the broken hull, was the pilot. It was breathtakingly silent. The being was enormous, 7 feet at least, blacker than the night. Its eyes, two vertical streaks of brilliant, liquid gold, were fixed on me. They weren't hostile, just intensely analytical. I couldn't move. Then, the contact. It wasn't sound, it was a thought, vast and ancient, pressed against my mind. It was a dizzying rush of complex geometric concepts and the sensation of immense, agonizing pain. Broken, source, energy. The thought echoed. I realized it wasn't a monster, it was injured. It needed help. I was a mechanic. My hands, greasy and scarred, were useful. The irony hit me, fixing a Starship using a crescent wrench. It was insane, but I found myself nodding. The pilot slowly extended one of its three-fingered hands, gesturing toward a panel that had come loose near the impact zone. Inside, circuits glowed with unsettling, non-standard colors. It was less like electronics and more like organized light. It projected specific images into my mind, a severed connection, a broken regulator, and the location of a small, intricate replacement component lodged deep within the wreckage. It communicated the failure code instantly. I worked for 4 hours under the silent, unwavering observation of the pilot. My internal monologue was chaos, yet my hands were steady. I was using repurposed copper wiring and a jeweler's screwdriver from my shop toolkit to fix intergalactic technology. When I reconnected the final splice, a low, resonant thrum vibrated through the air, and the green glow vanished, replaced by a soft, steady sapphire light. The pilot's mental presence shifted, the pain subsided, replaced by profound relief. Then came the reward. The pilot flooded my mind again, but this time it wasn't schematics or pain. It was knowledge. Not human knowledge, but raw data about history, physics, and cosmic scale. It was terrifyingly vast. I saw the true age of the universe, not in years, but in energy cycles. I saw humanity's place, a brief, fascinating flicker of accidental consciousness. I saw the connection between certain ancient monuments and stellar alignments. Everything I knew was rendered meaningless. The download stopped abruptly, leaving me dizzy, hyper-aware, and fundamentally changed. I was now carrying truths that no one I knew could ever comprehend. I was a simple mechanic who knew how the cosmos truly worked. The pilot turned toward the ship. The damaged panel sealed itself seamlessly, the metallic skin knitting together instantly, leaving no scar. The humming increased to a profound, barely audible tone. Without warning, the ship lifted, not slowly, but instantaneously, silently hovering above the crater. The pilot, now inside, gave one final, mental farewell, an acknowledgement of my utility. A promise of continued observation. Then, it was gone. Not flown away, but extinguished, vanished. The power immediately returned to the valley, my shop lights flickered back on, and the swamp cooler roared to life. The crater was the only proof, a perfect geometric scar in the field. I went back to the shop, finished Gary's transmission, and cleaned the grease off my hands. But the grease was replaced by the weight of cosmic truth. I still fix cars, but now I know that everything under the hood, all our physics, is just children's tinkering. And those golden eyes? They are still watching. I remember staring at the satellite dishes. It was late August 2025, and the air conditioning had died in my rental unit. I desperately needed to breathe cooler air, so I found myself sitting on the flat roof of the old two-story strip mall downtown, the perfect, forbidden vantage point over the sleeping suburb of Northridge. I wasn't doing anything suspicious. I was just scrolling through my phone, watching old movie trailers and letting the quiet night swallow the sound of the traffic on the distant interstate. The air up there was surprisingly crisp, smelling faintly of hot tar and pine needles. The entire neighborhood was dark, bathed only in the sickly yellow glow of scattered streetlights. I had been up there maybe an hour when the quiet started to feel heavy, like a pressure building behind my eyes. I glanced up, expecting to see a plane or maybe a particularly bright star. I saw something else entirely. On the roof of the building directly across the lot, a low-slung, dark brick pharmacy, there was movement. At first, I dismissed it as maybe a deer that had managed to jump the fence, or perhaps just a shadow playing tricks. But then it moved again, too quickly, too low to the ground to be any animal I recognized. It was definitely a figure, incredibly thin, crouched or bent over in a posture that felt agonizing to witness. It traversed the asphalt shingles silently, covering ground with an unnerving, dragging momentum. It looked like a marionette being pulled horizontally, its joints failing simultaneously. My blood turned cold. I instinctively lowered my phone, letting the screen dim. I held my breath, focusing solely on the motion across the way. The figure stopped right at the edge of the pharmacy's roofline. It didn't look down at the parking lot, and it didn't look up at the sky. It turned its long, distorted silhouette directly toward me. The distance was about 50 yards, maybe less, but the streetlights were angled poorly. I couldn't make out any features, just the shape. And the shape was profoundly, terrifyingly wrong. It was taller than any person should be when crouched, yet impossibly narrow. Then came the observation that truly broke the spell of normalcy: it didn't seem to have a head. Where a head should have been, there was only a seamless extension of its neck and shoulders, resolving into a blank, black surface. I realized I was holding a deep, painful breath. When I finally exhaled, it was shaky and loud. The figure reacted instantly. It didn't leap, and it didn't run. It unfolded itself. Its limbs seemed to stretch impossibly, elongating and locking into place with a horrifying swiftness. It now stood perfectly upright, towering on the edge of the roof, completely still. It looked like a broken clock tower made of skin and shadow. I knew, with absolute, paralyzing certainty, that it was looking right at me. Panic hit me like a physical blow. I had to get off the roof. There was only one way down, a rusty ladder leading to a delivery alley beside the dumpster. I scrambled backward, knocking over the empty plastic bottle I had brought with me. The sound seemed deafening. I looked up one last time, just as I started to slide toward the ladder. The thing was gone from the pharmacy roof. The terror of the open space was overwhelming. It hadn't fallen. It couldn't have jumped. It had simply vanished. I practically fell down the metal rungs, ignoring the raw scrape of the rust against my fingers. I landed hard in the narrow alley. My phone dropped out of my pocket and clattered against the pavement, the screen cracking. I snatched it up without even checking the damage and started running toward the main road. As I bolted past the back entrance of the strip mall, I heard a sound from above. It wasn't heavy or stomping. It was a faint, scraping whisper, like sandpaper being dragged slowly across concrete. It was on my roof. I didn't look back. I sprinted 3 blocks until I reached the familiarity of my own street, my lungs burning. I didn't stop until I had slammed and locked the door to my apartment, barricading it with the kitchen chair and collapsing onto the floor. I stayed awake until dawn, shaking uncontrollably, listening to every sound the building made. The next morning, the horror felt distant, impossible. Had I imagined it? Was it a trick of the night and the lack of sleep? I almost convinced myself it was nothing. That afternoon, I finally found the courage to examine my phone, which I had simply tossed onto the counter. The screen was cracked, yes, but that wasn't what mattered. I had been scrolling through movie trailers when I first looked up. The application was closed. Instead, the screen was displaying the camera app. It was set to the front-facing, or selfie, camera. And there, captured in a burst of motion blur just before I dropped the device, was a photo. A low-angle, grainy shot of my own terrified face. But centered perfectly in the top corner of the frame, right above my shoulder, wasn't the dark roofline I had expected. It was the seamless, elongated neck, and the blank space where a face should have been, staring back at the lens. The thing hadn't just been on the pharmacy roof. It had been right behind me the whole time I was scrolling, standing silent and completely still, waiting for me to turn around. And that photo wasn't taken when I dropped the phone. It was taken at 1:47 a.m., exactly 3 minutes before I even saw the figure move on the distant roof. Which means it wasn't pursuing me at all. It was leaving me a souvenir. I never went back to that apartment. I never looked up at the roofs again. I still have the phone. Sometimes, late at night, I feel the immense, chilling weight of the memory of something knowing exactly where I was, and knowing when I would finally see it. But really, I only ever saw its back.